moment.
Well, it's telling me it's being live streamed. Do I want it live streamed? There we go.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rogue Reads, a program put on by the Rogue Women Writers monthly with some of the best authors. I just almost fell off my laptop, Lee Goldberg. With some of the best authors, coast to coast, sometimes globally, that you can ever hope to see, all with new books out. And this is a lineup that I am especially happy to be kicking off our fall season with. I love hosting Rogue Reads every time I get to do it, but it's rare to do it with some of my absolute favorite authors whose books, I would have read even before the show. It's fun to discover new authors too, and I like that part of Rogue Reads. And I'm really thrilled by our lineup tonight, and I can tell by all the people in the Zoom room that you are too. So with no further ado, I am going to introduce our lineup. And I usually go alphabetically. I hope that'll work out. We'll try to mix it up after we've started getting into things. A very fun thing that we do on Rogue Reads is we ask our authors to share either their favorite drinks or their character's favorite drink. Each of our authors provided something fun. I'm going to try to hoist it and show you in a little while. You'll see why I said hoisted in just a moment. So let us kick off with Lee Child and Andrew Grant Child, the authors of the inimicable Jack Reacher series. Really needs no introduction, but I'm going to give you one because these bios had some tidbits I didn't know. So Lee Child had an 18-year career as a presentation director during British TV's golden age. At a mysterious age that I'm not going to name, he got fired as a result of corporate restructuring. But instead of looking at this as a bad thing, he saw it as an opportunity. And he sat down with $6 worth of pens and pencils and paper, and he created a hero that's now become as iconic as the Lone Ranger, none other than Jack Reacher. Killing Floor, the first installment in the series, went on to kick off a series that has sold tens of millions of books and to be in a whole new installment and life now, which we'll get into. It also became a movie franchise and is in development as an Amazon series, I think, which I hope we'll get to hear more about. And Andrew Grant Child worked as in the telecommunications industry, carrying out a variety of roles that if he told us about, he'd have to kill us. Is that true, Andrew? A number covered by the UK Official Secrets Act, after which he established himself as the author of multiple critically acclaimed novels. He's married to novelist Tasha Alexander and lives on a wildlife preserve at altitude, maybe. And is now the co-author of two of the new Jack Reacher series. We're here tonight to talk about Better Off Dead, and I'm going to read a little bit about, like a brief blurb about the book, and then Lee and Andrew, or Andrew and Lee, you decide how you'd like to tell us about this second in the new installment. But here it starts out. Digging graves had not been part of my plans when I woke up that morning. Reacher goes where he wants, when he wants. That morning he was heading west, walking under the merciless desert sun until he comes upon a curious scene. A Jeep has crashed into the only tree for miles around, and a woman is slumped over the wheel. And I'm not going to tell you any more about Better Off Dead. I'm going to ask Lee and Andrew to discuss Michaela's story and the criminal she takes down.
Well, thanks, Jenny. Lovely to see you. And I wrote that jacket copy for the book, so that's pretty much it. That's dead on. That's all I can say. It is, you got to look at it in a pair with the first one we did together, which was The Sentinel last year. And that one was more ambitious in the sense that we had a purpose concealed behind the transition of authors. And the purpose was to bring Reacher slightly more into at least the 20th century, if not the 21st, when it came to his reactions to technology, which had always been based on my own reactions to technology, which are zero, basically. I'm hopeless at it. I don't like it. I don't want to deal with it. I hate it. And for instance, now, whereas other participants here have got fantastically sophisticated equipment, my laptop is sitting on a roll of paper towels to get it to the right height. That's about as technical as I get. And whereas I felt that, I think it's a universal truth, honestly, that readers prefer it if the hero is slightly behind the curve in terms of technology, because that reassures the reader that they're not an idiot. You know, that if the guy in the book knows as little about technology as the reader, everybody's happy. But Reacher is getting decades out of date, you know, centuries out of date. You could even say like 1,000 years out of date. His heart was completely pre-industrial, essentially. And so, whereas in a way it was charming, it was on my mind that it was rubbish, really. You know, he had to move ahead a little bit. And so the Sentinel had that strategy behind it, that we wanted to find a vehicle that would move him more into the 21st century. And Andrew did that with the plot of that book was about cybercrime, which is something that I would have shied away from because I know what it is. And I know kind of vaguely what happens, but I've got no sense at all of who would be doing it or why or how, especially the how. And so Andrew supplied all of that. And so as well as the first book we wrote together, it was a specific intention behind it. Whereas Better Off Dead, which is this year's book and the one that is out next week, and the one that, you know, our second one together, we felt, okay, we've done the thing with the cybercrime. Now let's just do whatever we want. And I was looking forward to it. It was kind of the return to the old way of doing Reacher, which is just whatever, you know, whatever. Let's just see what happens next. And that's how we did it. It worked great, except it was kind of accelerated at the beginning because Andrew wrote the opening chapter without telling me, kind of in secret. And I can see why, because it was a thing that was either going to work or not, and it had to be tried out on the page, and it did work. So he emailed it to me, and I was listening to music, I think, high as a kite, and my phone dinged, and in comes this chapter, and it was fabulous, just beyond brilliant. And so I thought, great, you know, we've got a chapter. So really, we started the process with chapter 2, but it was set, you know, we were rolling, and it was a joy to do because, and for me, especially because I was not really doing all of it, you know, I was doing less than half of it, really. It was a joy to read, you know, I couldn't wait for the next bit. And so it was a pleasure to do from beginning to end, from my perspective. Now you got to ask Andrew, how much of a pain was it from his perspective?
Andrew, tell us, spill the tea.
Yeah, no, it was really fun from my point of view because, like Lee said, you know, we didn't have any preconceptions, no rules, no goals, nothing going into it. We just said, okay, let's just tell the best story that we can tell. So we had a bit of discussion about, you know, what kind of feel we wanted for the book, you know, what kind of tone we wanted. And then I came up with this idea. It's not actually the bit about the tree in the car. It opens in a completely different way because I was gonna start with that. But then, you know how sometimes you get that beautiful moment when you realize, no, that's not where you start the story. You start it here instead. So it was one of those things. I mean, I know why it came across like I'd written it in secret, but it wasn't some sort of, you know, demonic plot or anything like that. It was just that the idea, you know, sometimes you have an idea and it just seems, you know, you're not sure if you can pull it off and you think, you know, maybe it's too crazy and you don't want to tell anybody about it because it might kind of just collapse in front of you, a bit like Lee Goldberg's computer. So I thought, you know, maybe what I should do is just try it and just see what happens. So that's what I did. And, you know, I finished it, left it for a couple of days, you know, because I don't know about you guys, but I often have this thing where I'll come up with an idea, you know, either late at night or I'll be in the shower or something, and I'll think, this is the best idea ever. This is fantastic. And then I come back to it and I think, what on earth was thinking, this is ridiculous. It's stupid. So I wanted to wait and see. You know, it was one of those things, you know, if I left it out in the sunshine, was it going to evaporate? You know, was it going to disappear in a puff of smoke? And it didn't. I liked it when I went back to it. So I thought, okay, well, see what Lee thinks. So off it went through the ether to him. He liked it too. And then we just rolled from there, and it was a blast because we didn't have to worry about, you know, is there enough technology, is there enough this, is there enough that? We could just do whatever we wanted. So it was a really fun experience.
Well, I want to get more into a traditional reacher, but I also want to go down the line introducing our guests. But hold on, this is why I said hoist the favorite drink. So I didn't just want to make a cup of coffee for Reacher. I made a whole pot, but I dipped into it before we started tonight. Reacher's favorite drink, of course, is coffee. He drinks it around the clock, and there was peach pie, which I wish I could have made, but no, it's beyond me. Thank you, Andrew and Lee, for that introduction to Better Off Dead. We are all really excited for it. Next, we're going to stay alphabetical. And we'll introduce Lee Goldberg. Lee's favorite drink was easier. It's a Diet Coke. It's Diet Coke. I had to buy it. I felt really bad buying it, Lee, because diet, no, real sugar. I bought it and I kept being like, I need to tell Lee Goldberg to do real sugar, but then I thought maybe that wasn't my place.
If Lee Goldberg did real sugar, Lee Goldberg would be obese Lee Goldberg. And I should mention, before you do my biography, I'm making an important announcement tonight.
Oh.
I am now Lee Goldberg Child. That's my new name. I thought Andrew Grant Child had such a nice ring to it. And I've already been accused with having a novel called Gated Prey of ripping off John Sanford. Let's make it complete.
Yeah.
Gated Prey by Lee Goldberg Child. I think my sales might go up just a notch. I might be able to afford Lee Child's paper towel underneath my laptop.
Well, let's not get crazy. But yeah, Lee Goldberg Child, the author of the #1 John Sanford New York Times bestselling book, Gated Prey, I think I helped you out there, is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of over 30 novels. I think you're fine, Lee. Just as Lee Goldberg, I think you're just fine.
Okay.
Including 5 Fox and O'Hara adventures, co-written with Janet. Can we just say Janet?
Yeah, for a while I was Lee Goldberg Ivanovich, and that's kind of run its course. Now I'm Lee Goldberg Child.
Right.
Maybe next week I'm Lee Goldberg Patterson.
And the new thriller, Gated Prey. But he's written and co-produced TV shows, including Diagnosis Murder, Monk, and co-created the hit Hallmark series, which I didn't even know about, Mystery 101. I'm going to check that out.
Too young to be watching it.
Oh, but I love Hallmark. He's also the co-founder of Brash Books, which has published over 100 crime novels and thrillers. Every time I see Lee Goldberg, he thinks I'm younger than I am. Really, this has happened.
That's a bad thing?
No, it's great. It's just funny. Like it's just happened multiple times, but it's very kind. I love Hallmark. Gated Prey does sound like a wonderful 3rd installment in a series. And I don't know if everybody knows the Eve Ronin series, but I'm going to give you the log line for Gated Prey. A simple sting operation takes a violent and unexpected turn for Detective Eve Ronin in this 3rd in the series. And the first line, Los Angeles County Sheriffs, Detective Eve Ronin, and her soon-to-retire partner are running a 24/7 sting in a guard-gated enclave of palatial homes. Their luxury mansion is a honey trap, set to lure in the violent home invaders invading the community. And that's all I want to say. That just sounds so amazing. Tell us about Gated Prey, Lee.
Well, you just did. There's nothing left for me to say, except you should go out and buy the book. It's actually the 3rd book about Eve Ronin, who's the youngest female member of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Homicide Division, a job she doesn't deserve, didn't earn, and kind of stumbled into. And I created her because I love Harry Bosch. I love John Rebus. I love all these great police procedurals. I wanted to write one, and there was no way I could compete against all that greatness. I mean, how do you do something different? Plus, I am tired of all the middle-aged white detectives who are, nursing alcoholism or drug addiction or sex addiction or still haunted by the serial killer who massacred their families. And I want to do something entirely different. So by creating a character who was young and female, doing a job she may have the skills for, but not the experience, gave me a lot of conflict and fresh ground to explore that every other police procedural hadn't already done. And man, I picked a corner of Los Angeles that hasn't been written about to death or filmed about to death, which is the Lost Hills jurisdiction of Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I don't know how familiar you all are with Los Angeles, but the Lost Hills jurisdiction is sort of an island in the middle of the San Fernando Valley that's on its boundaries. It has Los Angeles County, it has Ventura County, it has the Pacific Ocean. And the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is the law in just that little island. But that island includes Malibu. It includes Topanga Canyon, the hippy dippy lifestyle there, the gated communities of Calabasas and Hidden Hills, the Santa Monica Mountains, Malibu Creek State Park, which isn't just a state park, it's also a giant film set. So it gave me all sorts of interesting cultures and worlds to explore with this character. And it's been a lot of fun. It's something different for me, and I've been fortunate that it's been the most successful creatively and commercially of anything I've written so far.
Oh, that is a great, yeah. And I love the double meaning of the title, and it just sounds very cool overall. So thank you for that intro. We are going to talk more about it, but I would love to introduce Lisa Unger, who is, I don't know, the queen of domestic suspense, Mary Higgins Clark Rising. I don't even know, modern day Mary Higgins Clark. I don't know what to call Lisa. I'll read her bio and hope that it does it.
Just call me Lisa Unger Child. Yes.
Lisa Unger Goldberg Child. The New York Times and internationally best-selling author of 19 novels, and the latest has a really cool title, Last Girl Ghosted. Millions of readers worldwide, books published in 26 languages, Unger is widely regarded as a master of suspense. Her critically acclaimed books have been voted Best of the Year, chosen as top picks by Today, Good Morning America, Entertainment Weekly, Amazon, IndieBound, and others. And I didn't know this, you've written for the New York Times, essays in Wall Street Journal and NPR, and Travel and Leisure. Very fascinating. She lives on the west coast of Florida with her family. Last Girl Ghosted. Very good log line. I mean, listen to this, guys. And I defy any of you not to buy Better Off Dead, the third Eve Ronin. I can't believe I just blanked on
I'll take any plug I can get, even if it's for Lisa Unger.
Gated Prey by Lisa Unger Child. And Last Girl Ghosted. Get them all from bookshop.org or amazon.com or your local bookstore. You will have a great reading weekend, and no more than a weekend, even with all three books there. Fast, quick-paced authors. Okay, listen to this logline for Last Girl Ghosted. Think twice before you swipe. I know Andrew said Lee said he came up with the one for Better Off Dead. Did you come up with that, Lisa, or did some genius at the publisher do it?
So it was the genius at my publisher, my editor. She's the person who, it's actually her title as well. So she really has a gift for these things.
It's awesome. Okay, so this is what it's about. And I like the fact that we don't learn the heroine's name for her long ways into the book. She met him through a dating app. An intriguing picture on a screen, a date at a downtown bar. What she thought might be a quick hookup became much more. She fell for him hard. It happens sometimes, a powerful connection with a perfect stranger. Just as things were getting real, he stood her up. Then he disappeared, profiles deleted, phone disconnected. She was ghosted. Tell us, Lisa. Wait, hold on a minute. Lisa Wren's favorite drink is
I'm so glad you have that, because I could not remember what I said. What's my favorite drink?
It's a Cosmopolitan. Yeah, a Cosmo. I'm not going to take a sip of it because I'm already like stuttering over my words. You won't even understand me after that. But that's the favorite drink. It's fun for Last Girl Ghosted. Take it away, Lisa. Tell us about the new book.
Yeah. So when we first meet Wren at the beginning of the book, she's, I didn't know that much about her, which is sort of the way of all my books and all my characters. I knew she was an advice columnist, and she comes from a dark, sort of traumatic past. I mean, of course she does, right? It's the Lisa Unger novel. There will be trauma. And she's come forward from it into the light. She's created a life for herself that she loves. And, but she hasn't connected with anybody in a really long time. And her best friend, Jax, is kind of worried about it. So she pushes her into the world of online dating. which, Ren is not 100% enthusiastic about it, but she goes for it. She has some underwhelming encounters, and then she meets Adam. And when she falls for him, she falls really, really hard. She is, she thinks he's the one. And so when they have like a particularly romantic evening, he makes a request. He says, tell me something that you've never told anyone. And she does. She reveals a very dark secret that she's kept from almost everyone in her life. And as he mentioned, the next day, he's gone. His social media profiles are gone. His phone has been disconnected. And the place where she thought he lived is just a vacation rental. So Ren has been ghosted. And when, she discovers that there are other women who thought they were in love with Adam and that all of those women have disappeared, she, instead of being just grateful that whatever he may have done to those other women, he didn't do to her, she decides that she's going to chase his very dark digital trail into his past and into her own. And that is Last Girl Ghosted.
Darn straight she does.
She does, because she is not your average girl. She's got some history and some skills. Yeah.
So I love Last Girl Ghosted with Better Off Dead and what Lee and Andrew were saying about tech and Reacher. I mean, it's just so interesting. And I might, if we have time for it, like to get into talking about like the modern day world and the time out of time that Lee was describing. I mean, I don't think of Reacher as 1,000 years old because he's kind of like me, but
he's like analog. He's like an analog guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's super analog. But I actually thought of a similarity between an interesting theme between all three of these books, Gated Prey, Last Girl Ghosted, and Better Off Dead, that I'd like to ask our authors to kick around. And I think it's a little bit of a meaty topic. It almost could have been like a whole panel by itself. But I'd like to talk about the role. I mean, Lee Goldberg, you opened us up to this because you mentioned writing Eve Ronan and a female detective and all that. I'd like to talk about the role of writing women and women in these books. And it's a big theme in Last Girl Ghosted, women blaming themselves. And Lee and Andrew, I think women in the Reacher novels has always been a source of fascination to me. If I were doing a dissertation in English literature, I might write it on women in the Reacher novels. So unless you're really mad at me, in which case you can all read for 25 minutes, could you talk about like women in your books and whatever you got from that topic I just tossed out there?
Well, I have a lot of women in my life. I was raised by a single mother. I've got sisters. I have a wife. I have a daughter. And it has always infuriated me the way men write women. Men seem to think that all women think about is their breasts and encounter, every experience they have is experienced first through their breasts. Her breast swelled as she saw him. Her breast quivered with fear as she saw him.
It's very
Her breasts were tired because I'm so fed up with the way men write women. So part of Eve Ronan is my reaction against that. You can have fully fleshed out, full-bodied women. You can have really three-dimensional, deep, interesting characters that are women that have nothing to do with who they are and with their sexuality. It doesn't mean that sexuality isn't a part of it, but I'm tired of the male gaze through the eyes of women, but it's not really through women. It's just a man looking at a woman from a woman's character, and it's BS. And it's fun for me because my wife and daughter will read my books, and I'm gonna do my wife's bad accent now. She'll go, I really like this woman. She understands women. How come you don't? I don't understand. Why can't you be her instead of you? So somehow I'm able to write women in an understanding way, but as an actual man, I'm terrible at it. So for me, it's just a way to stretch and also to differentiate my characters from other police detective characters and police procedurals.
But you having the women in your life and you're not quite sure how it happens, you wouldn't say that you sit down and, interview various women to make sure you get this right. It just kind of forms on the
For me, it's been a matter of survival. I mean, when I was being raised by a single mother who was a little bit crazy, I was always trying to understand her, to second guess her, to avoid the crises I knew were coming. So if I could understand what she was going through romantically or psychologically or at work, maybe I could head some of it off. And my sister Karen and I were only 2 years apart. We are very much, although we're brother and sister to our younger siblings also see us as parents. in a way. Like I gave my younger sister away at her wedding. And so I'm always trying to understand my sisters too. And I was always being sent out to buy things for my sisters, tampons and things at grocery stores. I was horribly embarrassed as a teenager having to do that. But now in a home where it's just me, my wife, and my daughter, I really need to understand women or I'm a dead man.
No, but you do. You get into her head very, very well. Thank you, Lee. So Lee or Andrew or Lisa, who wants to take it next?
Well, it just suddenly occurred to me, I think the four authors here tonight have only girls as children. That's right, isn't it?
That's true. Yes.
You have one, I have one, you have one, Andrew has two. No boys at all. And so, in a way that brings you a sort of a sense of responsibility that you've got to, you've got to think about these things from day one. Not necessarily very successfully. I mean, I remember with my daughter, we were super aware of not indoctrinating her and in a way filtering what she was seeing from outside. She was born in 1980, so the world was somewhat different then. And we took pains. We would sort of read ahead a paragraph in all the storybooks and miss out paragraphs that were dubious and so on and so forth. But it was no good at all. I remember the Christmas when she was like 4.5 or 5.5 or something like that. She said for Christmas she wanted a nurse's outfit. So being the conscientious liberal parent that I was, we said to her, well, what about a doctor's outfit? And she looked at me with withering scorn and said, girls can't be doctors. Now, where did she get that from? Within the space of 5 years, it's a huge responsibility. And I sort of tried to carry that forward as a writer where, I mean, not very seriously because I didn't need to. All my friends are women. I love women. I worked with women almost exclusively over the years. And I have no problem with enjoying that at all. What I've tried to do with Reacher is that same balance that I have in my personal life, which is if you meet a woman, they're fascinating, they're interesting, they've got a career, they're full of good stuff, they are necessary, you can mine a lot of great stuff just talking, but at the same time, they might be super cute. So how do you balance that? Respecting the human individual with the atavistic evolutionary sexual impulse, and I find that easy, to be honest, because I can easily perceive, this is a really interesting intellectual person, also cute as hell. There's no like either or about it. It's usually both, but you've got to manage it in a way that is suitable, and you do that on the page as well. And for me, it's the best part of writing. I can make up an imaginary companion, and it's going to last me 6 months, and she's going to be interesting and cute and a lot of fun. And that's the thing that I've hated most about writing is finishing the book. I'm not going to see that girl anymore because, there are no recurring characters with Reacher, really. So it is something that is, you feel it as a theoretical responsibility, but it is easy to do. Just make it up. Just imagine the perfect woman, and there she is. And the key, I think, really for the Reacher series is Reacher's own reactions, and he has no problem at all with. I mean, he said in several books, he served under female commanding officers and so on, and they were the best. Yeah. Because generally they are. I mean, look around the world right now, especially over the last year or so with the pandemic. Which countries have actually done better? Which countries have done well? Which has had a harmonious collegial atmosphere about getting these things done? And typically they're the women leaders. And If it were up to me, I'd have a law that said for the next 25 years, the only political candidates allowed are female. And then let's see where we are.
Yeah, 25 years would probably do it. That's interesting. All right. Yeah, fascinating. And so you're saying Reacher respects women, and that comes through in each of the characters on the page.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, anything to add in terms of Better Off Dead or The Sentinel or?
Well, just sort of, the Reacher series in general, novels in general, really, because, there's a huge paradox in what we do. We make stuff up, and yet we want it to appear to be real and to be realistic and to be plausible. So, kind of like Lee and me, Reacher is a very kind of data-driven person. So, if you're going to try to create a fictional world that looks real, you try to base it on the real world. So if you look around the real world, what do you see? What do you see in your job? What do you see in your family? What do you see with your friends? And, if you're going to observe things accurately, you're going to see, as Lee was saying, women make really good leaders, they make really good companions, they make good friends. Sure enough, some of them you're not going to like, and some of them are going to be crooked or whatever, but that's all part of making it realistic. So if you want to make it realistic, then you have to reflect what you see, and what you see, is the full variety. It's not just a stereotype, as Lee Goldberg was saying. There was a time when that was all you came across, and that was unfulfilling as a reader because it was unrealistic and didn't reflect the real world.
Yeah. So I see Lisa Unger's body of work, but certainly Last Girl Ghosted as it's sort of part of that tradition. But I mean, it's always been there. It's not new, and yet you make it feel new, where the women, of course, are leading the story because women have always led their stories. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that unique problem of trying to write authentic women because I myself am an authentic woman. And I have a lifetime of, just incredibly powerful women in my life, my mom, my grandmother, my aunts, my friends, I have the women in my life are, they're badass, they're doing the biggest things that people are doing in the world. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're authors, and there's no question for me of, how to tell a story from a female perspective, or how to make these characters in my novels strong. They come to me strong because that's how I view women. Ace Atkins and I talk about this a lot, about, strong female characters. It's not necessarily, the cop with the gun, right? Like that's not really how women necessarily, exude strength. There's strength and fortitude and grace and moving forward from having been victimized and seeking justice. And so the women in my life are always like sort of, they may have been subjected to violence, or they may have been victimized in some way, but they're certainly not victims. They're all women who are trying to define themselves in the wake of something bad, or they're seeking justice, or they're looking for answers. And so they're fully realized. And the other element is I always, sort of dive deep into female relationships, because that's another thing that, is kind of a stereotype in fiction, is like, there's a lot of mean girl lit out there. There's a lot of like, women can't be trusted, women betray each other, you can't rely on women in personal friendships, and that is definitely not what I have seen to be true in my life. That, my life is filled with these powerful relationships, people who cheer you through the good days and kind of haul you through the bad ones, and, some of the toughest women I know are just moms, wrangling kids and trying to earn a living. And, all of this stuff just sort of, authentically finds its way, organically finds its way into the work. So I'm not so worried about writing tough female characters or sort of rewriting how women are seen in crime fiction. I'm just, bringing my own voice and my own perspective to the genre. And I hope that I'm doing justice to all my characters, male and female.
I just say one thing. Lee told a story about his daughter coming back dressed as a nurse. Mm-hmm. Reminded me of something that happened with my daughter I haven't thought about in years. My wife and I were in the kitchen one night, and our daughter, we were having fights with her because she wanted us to change her name to Brandy. She didn't like her name Madison. She wanted to be known as no, not Brandy, Brittany. She wanted to be known as Brittany. And we weren't going to do that. We said, when you're 18, you can change your name. So we're in the kitchen, getting ready for dinner. And Maddie comes in dressed in her underwear, wearing some of my wife's jewelry. And she goes, "I'm not so innocent," and started singing this Britney Spears song, which for a few minutes, my wife and I thought was adorable. And then we realized it's horrifying. She's sexualizing herself. It's cute, but it's horrifying, but it's cute. We were just torn by the whole thing that she picked up from watching, Britney Spears on Disney Channel, wherever else she was watching her.
It's hard to come of age as a girl in this country, right? I mean,
just let me mention in passing that the only anagram in the English language of Britney Spears is Presbyterians.
That's not as scary as Rosemary's Baby and how they use the anagram. No, I mean, that is fascinating. And I feel like we could talk about raising daughters for quite a long time. But actually, Lisa, you mentioned a word I want to hear from all the authors before we ask them to sing a song. Kidding. Read an excerpt, which is genre. So I wanted to ask, in terms of Last Girl Ghosted and Gated Pet Prey and Better Off Dead, genre, is it a cage? Is it a box? Is it a pair of wings? Lee, I was fascinated hearing you talk about the Reacher novels many books ago as Westerns. And I was very interested to see actually that there are Western movies all of a sudden being made, 2 big ones coming out. I'm wondering if this is going to be the burgeoning of the genre. And then Lisa, I think of your work as, an outgrowth of the Bronte sisters and the Daphne du Maurier. And, I don't even want to give you, and then Lee Goldberg, you do procedurals so well. And I guess you didn't have to do a lot of research to write your female characters besides just living, but I am wondering about genre as it pertains to these 3 books in particular, and how you situate yourselves within your genre, if you do. And we'll start with Lee Goldberg, because I just mashed up his genre horror.
I very much wanted to write a police procedural, but I was also aware of all the tropes that are out there, that the ground has been covered so thoroughly by Ed McBain and Michael Connelly and Ian Rankin and so many others. But not only that, 17,000 television shows that are police procedurals, and all of them shot in Los Angeles. What could I bring that was new to it? And what I did was sort of like what I did. I'm glad Lee Grant Child is here. Like I did with True Fiction, another book of mine where I wanted to write a spy novel but subvert the thriller at the same time, is I wanted to acknowledge the tropes and go another direction. So I came up with a young woman. There aren't usually young women in this genre. I came up with someone who's not haunted in any way. She has a fairly normal childhood, who's not a loner, who has a family, a mother and brothers and sisters, so who doesn't have all the answers, who isn't always right. So that I could look the cliche right in the eye and take the reader to the cliche and turn left, because that's the only way I thought that you could do the police procedural today. There are far too many authors, none of them in this Zoom chat room, but who are trying to be the next Reacher or the next Bosch or the next Plum, whatever, instead of trying to find their own way. And I think that's where you find the most fun. And the other thing that I find for the most part in police procedurals is an utter lack of humor. I find that unrealistic. I don't know about your lives, but in my life, even some of the most tragic, horrible times have had humor in them. And I can give you some examples if you like, but it's just, so I don't, when I read a utterly humorless police procedural, it just feels fake to me, because I know there's humor in life. And if it's not there, it's not an accurate portrayal. So I was very conscious in writing these police procedurals that I would go away, anything that felt like a trope, I would go the other way, and I would have humor and I would have family, which I find missing in a lot of these books. And that's how I approach the genre. I don't think there's anything wrong with any genre, whether it's whodunit, police procedural. You just have to find an entirely new spin on it. I mean, look at what Anthony Horowitz has done with the whodunits. I mean, absolutely brilliant. And there's so many authors who have done that, who have found something utterly conventional and formulaic and made it something new and fresh that's truly an outgrowth of their perspective on the world and their personalities. And I mean, I don't think anybody could write Reacher the way the Childs do or the Grants do, because it's not just a hero, it's a worldview, it's an attitude, it's a personality that these two men embody. And I think that's a mistake some people make when they go into writing a genre. Oh, I'm going to write an Agatha Christie, or I'm going to write a Michael Connelly, instead of writing a Phil Herbschmidt book, whoever you happen to be.
Right. Okay, so readers out there, listeners, get to know Eve Ronan. She is a very different kind of detective, and it's an interesting approach to the genre to see it as a box, but then step outside the box and write a different box next to it, kind of thing. So, Lisa, did I get that kind of history of the genre right for you, or do you see yourself in a totally different place, maybe? And Last Girl Ghosted.
It's interesting because I didn't really choose to write, like I've always been a writer. I've been writing since I was a kid. I don't remember, sort of defining myself any other way. And I've always had this kind of really dark and twisted imagination. And so, I've always just kind of followed that, that darkness onto the page. And so I don't really, when I sit down to write, I'm not thinking this is a mystery or this is a psychological, thriller or it's not, or I'm, trying to genre bend or whatever. I mean, I just use the word because there really is no other word to use. I just hear, these voices, these characters, and I follow them onto the page, and usually, bad things happen when we get there. And so it's not, I mean, I know I'm squarely sort of in the area of kind of psychological suspense, but I never really set out to write, that type of book. It's just naturally where my imagination goes, where my taste in fiction goes. And you're right, like the Daphne du Maurier's and Patricia Highsmiths. I mean, these are the writer, Charlotte Armstrong, these are the writers that, that formed me. And I, and those are the types of books that I read. So it's just kind of a, for me, it's kind of a continuum of just sort of writing and reading and researching and how those things all kind of evolve onto the page. And it really, when I'm writing, I don't really think about genre, I just think about character. And, and I come from a publishing background, so I know that it's an important thing, but I feel that it's an important thing for publishers and for booksellers to say that this book is this and this book is that, because that's how they sell. I don't necessarily think it's important for me to define the work in that way.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, so Lee and Andrew, Reacher's on the Frontier. Is it a Western? Is it something else? Is it neither?
I've got no idea what it is, and I'm supremely not interested in genre per se, which is heavily linked to the fact that I never ever make a plan or an outline. So I literally have no idea what the book is going to be about or how it's going to feel. And Andrew is somewhat more of a planner than me, but I'm making him work my way. So the mental image I have for the novel, whatever novel I have no idea what it's going to be, but the novel is a movie stuntman on the top of a 60-story building, and he's got to jump off. And the props department in the street below have got a giant square airbag for him to land on. And one corner is marked mystery. One corner is marked suspense. One corner is marked thriller. And one corner is marked crime fiction. And I sincerely hope that the novel is going to land on the airbag, but it's going to be off center. It'll be towards one corner or the other. And at this point, I have no idea which corner, but as long as it lands somewhere on that airbag, I'm happy. And you can say, yeah, some of them come across more as crime fiction with social issues in them and so on and so forth. Some of them are straightforward thrillers. Some of them look most like suspense novels or whatever. Some of them are very mystery, with small clues. The first book, the clues turned on punctuation in a note. That has happened. The sixth book turned on a hyphen between vice and president. That used to be, now we don't put a hyphen in there, but there was a long period of time when we did. So it dated a certain thing, which is a classic mystery, almost cozy, if you're talking about punctuation. So I've really I don't care at all what anybody calls it. I agree with Lisa that it's a thing that shorthand that publishers and retailers find super useful. But I honestly don't think that the readers find it particularly useful. And I don't think that authors should in any way feel restricted. You got to go back to that old cliche. There's only two kinds of books. There's the kind that makes you miss your stop on the subway and the kind that doesn't. And the kind that does could be nonfiction. It could be anything. As long as it's a great story, well told, doesn't matter what's in it.
The Reacher novels are so thrilling that even the punctuation is breathtaking and exciting.
Punctuation is life and death.
To some. Andrew, anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, in broad terms, I totally agree with what the others have said, but I want to come to this from a sort of slight tangent, because many years ago when I was young and naive, I was stupid enough to go to university and study English literature. And even though my teachers told me I shouldn't, and of course I was too stubborn to listen to them. And at the end of my degree, I was sitting around in Sheffield, England, where I was in this horrible, awful rented house. All the other guys that I'd lived with, they'd all left and gone and done other things, but I was still hanging around with a bunch of other friends, and we would basically kind of drink all night and stay up all. Yeah, which way around was it now? No, we would be up all night, and then I'd sleep all day. So then we would. I'd get up at around 5 in the afternoon. There was this big debate at the time about whether there should be breakfast television. And I was thinking, well, what's that all about? There's always TV on when I get up. So, I get up, and there was this soap opera at the time called, I think it might still be on, called EastEnders. And it was all set around this pub in London, and it was on 7 days a week, I think. And so there was, I remember turning on the TV, and there was an episode of this show, and they were there in the pub that everything was set around. And I remember looking at the screen, because there was a window at the lower left-hand corner of the screen. And out of the window, you could see that it was raining. And, having just had all this English literature indoctrinated into me, I remember thinking, so there's a window, and through the window you can see rain. What does this signify? What does it symbolize? And then I thought, what it symbolizes is they shoot it in London and it rains all the time. That's what it symbolizes. There's actually nothing to it. It's not important. It's not some significant thing. And that was a turning point in my whole life, because from that point on, I said, from now on, I'm not going to worry about any of that others. I'm not going to worry about labeling things and finding, I'm just going to say, did I like it or not? Mm-hmm. The reason that will make me turn on the TV the next night to see the next installment is not what the rain through the window at the bottom left of the screen symbolized. It was whether the episode was good, whether it was enjoyable, whether I liked the characters. So that's all I try and think about. I don't care. And I think actually, in a way, I understand, yes, there is a purpose and a use and a utility to the idea of genre for booksellers and libraries and things. But I think in other ways, it's really bad, because, how many times have you been to a conference or something, and there's bitchiness between, that person only writes cozies, or that person does, it's just another thing that can be used to divide us. And I don't think there's any purpose in that. I don't think there's any good comes of it. I think it's much better to focus on, does this person write good books that I want to read, not what label should we attach to them, and do I have to adopt some kind of, attitude to those books because of what's supposed to be the connotations of whatever label.
Very well said, and we could totally do a panel I love this topic, literary versus genre fiction, but I'm not going to go down because I want everybody to sing tonight. So if our authors are willing, they will now read a short excerpt from their new books, Better Off Dead by Lee and Andrew Child, Last Girl Ghosted by Lisa Unger, and Gated Prey by Lee Goldberg. If you're willing. If you're not, I do have another question I can toss out there, but I know our listeners might enjoy some reading samples. So wave a hand if you're willing to step up to your mic.
Oh, us? Yeah, I mean, I will, why don't you let the readers, the people who are here, why don't you let them say what they want?
Oh, come on, guys.
Whatever they want, I will do. That's the way it goes with readers.
You guys wanna, I know we have some questions in the chat, which hopefully we'll have time for too. But yeah, everybody's saying everyone.
I see it in the chat. You guys don't know what you're asking for.
Right. Yes, please.
Reading or singing?
Reading.
Reading. I was only kidding about the singing. As a joke.
Everyone's reading
translate on Zoom. Yeah, it's only going to be reading. Reading.
Okay.
This kicked off because Lee Goldberg wrote in an email earlier, if you want me to sing, I'll sing. And I took the ball and ran with it. But yeah, I want Lisa Lee, Andrew Lee reading. So
okay,
go for it.
Me? You want me to do it? Oh, I'm all alone on the screen. Oh my God. Okay, well, I'm going to read from chapter 1, and I'm only going to read a tiny little bit so that everybody doesn't get like super bored and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, chapter 1. Now, from Last Girl Ghosted. Modern dating. Let's be honest. It sucks. Is there anything more awkward, more nervous making than waiting for a person you've only seen online to show up in the flesh? This was a mistake. The East Village bar I'm in is crowded and overwarm with too many bodies, manic with too many television screens, the din of voices, somewhere, music, trying in vain to be heard over the noise. I'm early, which has me feeling awkward and waiting on something I'm not sure I wanted in the first place. I started off standing by the door, half planning to leave, then finally made my way into the fray and slipped into an open place at the bar. And here I sat on an uncomfortable stool, waiting. I should go. My order of a seltzer water has earned me the indifference of the pretty tattooed bartender with the hot pink hair and magnetic eyelashes, and she hasn't been back since briskly placing the tumbler in front of me. She has a point. There's no reason to come to a place like this, a hipster watering hole at happy hour, unless you've come to have a drink. One certainly doesn't come for the atmosphere, but it's important to keep a clear head. I've never been here before. My best friend Jack suggested it, an old haunt of hers. Crowded, she said. Anonymous. Safer to meet a stranger in a crowd, right? Safer not to meet a stranger at all, had been my reply. A worried frown. And then what? Never meet anyone? Would that be so bad? Solitude? It's not the worst thing in life. It was Jax's idea, the whole online dating thing. Robin, my childhood friend, who's basically Jax's opposite, was against it. Love, she said, is not an algorithm. Truth. Anyway, who's looking for love? Only everyone, Robin would surely say. I take a sip of my icy, sparkling water and glance at the door. A roar of laughter goes up from the big group at the table in the back. I keep my eyes on them for a moment, watching. 3 women, 4 men, young, well-heeled, coiffed, and polished. Co-workers, maybe? Relaxed, easy, comfortable. The opposite of how I feel. I notice that my shoulders are hiked up. I force myself to relax, breathe. The man beside me is uncomfortably close, his shoulder nudging up against mine twice, now 3 times. Is he doing it on purpose? I turn to see. He's bulky, balding, a sheen of sweat on his brow. No, he's not even aware of me. He's on his phone, scrolling through pictures of women. It's that other app, Firestarter, the one just for hookups. It tells you who is in your vicinity, looking for a brief no-strings connection. There are people all around him. An attractive brunette alone at the end of the bar, also staring at her phone. A group of young girls, students judging from the new school sweatshirt and a pitcher of beer at a high top right behind him. He's on his 2nd scotch at least, I determined by the empty glass next to his full one, but he just keeps scrolling through the images on his phone, looking and looking. Strange. The world has become a very strange place.
I love
I'm
that
so glad
manic
I'm
bar
married,
room.
have been for 30 years. I would not want to be single today.
Me too.
We had it easy in a lot of ways.
Yes, for sure. It's not very nice out there right now. That's for sure.
My daughter's
you,
26.
Lisa.
I hear about it, and it scares me.
It is scary.
Yeah, I know. The manic bar room, Lisa, that was awesome. That's so it just nailed it. All right, awesome. So now, Lee, I know you don't have a copy of Better Off Dead. You're going to ask does Andrew Grandchild want to read a little, or shall we not put you guys on the spot?
That's up to him entirely. I can. I remember
I'll go for it.
Line.
I don't. Yeah, you do the opening line. I'll take it from there.
Okay, here's the opening line, purely from memory. The stranger got into position under the streetlight at 11 p.m. as agreed.
The light had been easy to find, just like he'd been told it would be. It was the only one in the compound that was still working, all the way at the end, 6 feet shy of the jagged metal fence that separated the United States from Mexico. He was alone and unarmed, as agreed. The car showed up at 11:02. It kept to the center of the space between the parallel rows of lock-up garages. They were made of metal too, roofs warped by the sun, walls scoured by the sand, 5 on the right, 4 on the left, and the remains of one more lying torn and corroded 10 feet to the side, like something had exploded inside it years ago. The car's lights were on bright, making it hard to recognize the make and model, and impossible to see inside. Continued until it was 15 feet away and then braked to a stop, rocking on its worn springs and settling into a low cloud of sandy dust. Then its front doors opened, both of them, and 2 men climbed out, not as agreed. Both the car's back doors opened, 2 more men climbed out, definitely not as agreed. The 4 men paused and sized the stranger up. They'd been told to expect someone big, and this guy sure fit the bill. He was 6'5", 250 pounds, chest like a gun safe and hands like backhoe buckets, and scruffy. His hair was coarse and unkempt. He hadn't shaved for days. His clothes looked cheap and ill-fitting, except for his shoes. He was somewhere between a hobo and a Neanderthal, not someone who was going to be missed. The driver stepped forward. He was a couple of inches shorter than the stranger and a good 50 pounds lighter. He was wearing black jeans and a black sleeveless t-shirt. He had on black combat-style boots. His head was shaved, but his face was hidden by a full beard. The other guys followed, lining up alongside him. The money, the driver said. The stranger patted the back pocket of his jeans. Good, the driver nodded towards the car. Back seat, get in. Why? So I can take you to Michael. That wasn't the deal. Sure it was. The stranger shook his head. The deal was, you tell me where Michael is. Tell you, show you, what's the difference? The stranger said nothing. Come on, what are you waiting for? Give me the money and get in the car. I make a deal, I stick to it. You want the money? Tell me where Michael is. The driver shrugged. The deal's changed. Take it or leave it. I'll leave it. Enough of this. The driver reached behind his back and took a pistol from his waistband. Cut that crap. Get in the car. You were never going to take me to Michael. No shit, Sherlock. You were going to take me to someone else, someone who has questions for me. No more talking. Get in the car. Which means you can't shoot me. Which means I can't kill you yet. I can still shoot you. The stranger said, can you?
Give it the highest compliment ever and say quintessential reacher. That's awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for the first line, Lee. Thank you for the reading, Andrew. Lee Goldberg, will you read to us from Gated Prey? Please?
Yes, and I realize what I'm about to read is going to make a hypocrite out of me about what I said about women, because, well, you'll find out when I read this. You're going to think I'm a schmuck, but I'm going to start reading. Eve Ronan was topless under her black Chanel suit jacket, so everybody she encountered at Bristol Farms supermarket had their eyes on her chest. That was fine with her. She wanted to draw attention to herself, but not to her face, which she feared people might recognize, despite hiding it behind a big pair of sunglasses. She also didn't want anyone studying her blazer's long cut, which hid her holstered Glock and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department badge that were clipped to the waistband of her skinny jeans. Her partner, Duncan Pavone, a fat man in his late 50s, leaned on a walker beside her in the checkout line. He wore an untucked, oversized Louis Vuitton blue camouflage silk shirt that matched his cargo pants and sneaker boots. He would have been invisible in a jungle of Vuitton logos, which Bristol Farms often was, but not on this February morning. He pulled out a thick wad of cash from his pants pocket, peeled off a crisp $100 bill with a flourish, and handed it to the middle-aged female cashier to pay for their deli sandwiches, an apple pie, and a bottle of wine. Keep the change, honey. I don't do small bills. Duncan winked at the woman and shuffled out, leaning heavily on his walker, leaving Eve to handle the groceries. Eve snatched up the bag, and as she passed Logan, he smacked her on the butt. She didn't mind the swat. It was all part of the act. Now, anybody watching who is trying to decide if she was his 20-something lover or his daughter would have their answer. Eve took a leather-wrapped key fob out of her pocket as she emerged from the store and aimed it at the white Rolls-Royce Cullinan SUV parked in the handicap spot. The suicide doors of the Rolls automatically yawned open, revealing the decadent leather, wood, and milled aluminum interior, and the plush lamb's wool floor mats. She tossed the groceries on the back seat. Duncan hobbled up and she held his walker steady for him as he climbed into the front passenger seat. She folded his walker, stuck it in the back seat, closed the doors, and walked around to the driver's side. You don't do small bills? Eve asked as she climbed in. My money clip can barely hold all the cash I've already got. It's all singles under that C note. The money roll and my Glock are weighing down my sweats. They're only held up by a drawstring, and I don't want them to fall. Is that how you're going to explain the expense to the captain? What's he going to do? Fire me? Duncan said. I'm retiring in 80 days. Eve started the ignition and they both watched as a slot opened at the tip of the impossibly long hood, and the silver Spirit of Ecstasy ornament, a winged woman ready to fly, rose up from hiding and snapped into place. It was a grand performance to mark the beginning of each journey. Damn, I wish my Buick Regal did that, Duncan said. With one hand on the wheel, Eve looked over her shoulder and slowly backed out of the parking spot. Twisting in her seat made her blazer gape open. Duncan peeked at her cleavage. Stop looking at my boobs, she said. You know I can't resist a mystery. How are they staying in there? Tape. She faced forward again and steered the rolls out of the shopping center. You mean like Scotch tape? Of course not. Duct tape? Boob tape. Duncan shook his head. I've been married for 30 years. I've got 2 daughters, and I've never heard of boob tape. It prevents wardrobe malfunctions. I should buy a couple rolls of boob tape, Duncan said, kicking off his shoes and running his toes through the furry floor mat. For your wife or for your daughters? Are you kidding? I don't want them walking around with everything hanging out. She glanced at him. Then what do you want the tape for? Duncan patted his belly. To hold this back and create the illusion that I have 6-pack abs. You should call David Copperfield instead, Eve said.
Thank you. It's always nice to end on a laugh. And wow, the time has gone so incredibly fast. Thank you for those readings. I know Chris said that the Facebook Live crew was eating them up. Chris, do we have time for a couple of questions? I know we're already at our hour. You're muted, Chris.
I have to unmute. I don't know. We have more comments than just everybody saying that they love the cliffhangers and things. The one question that we could answer, Lisa, was for you. Did you have any input on your cover? Catherine Holum on Facebook wants to know. She thinks it's very spooky.
Thank you. I did not have any input on the cover except to say, oh my God, it's amazing. I I have to say the folks at Park Row have done just an amazing job. My covers with them have been some of my favorite, and this is definitely one of my favorites. It's very spooky and sort of shiny, and the whole like sort of finger tracing down the windows, pretty amazing. So I can't take any credit for it. It's all the Park Row art department.
What was your original title before your publisher came up with the current one?
Wait, let me think. I think I I don't remember. I fully integrated Last Girl Ghosted. I remember like for The Stranger Inside, it was the Nightjar. I remember that because I felt very attached to that. And then for Confessions on the 745, it was Black Butterfly. And I'm trying to think of what the title for this one was, but I can't. So it must have been Last Girl Ghosted at its hard part.
Let me ask you a different question. Do they ever use your titles?
Only if I don't love the title that I turned it in with. Like if I have a title that I don't love and it's like a working title and I think, oh, it's going to get changed, then that is definitely the title they are going to get. If I'm super attached to my title and think this is the only title it can ever be, it is almost guaranteed not to be the final title for the book.
Now, I think for you, Lee and Andrew, they could just put Lee Child. Grant,
you don't even need a title anymore.
Book. And it would sell.
Seriously, but from the very beginning, I tried to make him put Jack Reacher as the biggest element of the jacket because I'm a reader and I don't care about authors. I mean, when I'm in the company of authors, of course, they're good friends and we have a good laugh and it's great. But as a reader, who cares really? It's the character that people buy. Yeah. And so the strategy was always to make it about Jack Reacher, not about me, not about that year's title. And that really worked great for this transition to Andrew because, nobody's going to notice, really. Nobody's going to care. It's as long as Reacher is there doing Reacher-ish things, that's what people want. And so my titles have generally been a mixture. Some of them have worked really well that I've wanted, and some of them I've really had no idea. And some of them, you have that terrible situation. You got a great title, and that's the book. And then 1 month before, you hear somebody else is using that title. Exactly. Sandra Brown did that to me one year. And so you got to go to a substitute. But mine have been a mixture. Some are mine, some of the editors. Some have just sort of emerged. I think maybe the mailroom guy did it or something. But, generally.
I have a question for Lee and Andrew. You have been collaborating on these books. When are you just stepping out, Lee, or are you going to continue to collaborate?
I'm stepping out as soon as I can. I'm an old man. I'm out of gas, and the whole thing was that this would be a smooth transition. Then Andrew takes over it. We've done 2. He's great at it, and so as of tonight, I'm going to completely retire.
Look what we've done to him. We've given him out of the business. Oh my God. Lisa, this is all your fault. I had nothing to do with it.
Thanks, guys. My workload just doubled because of you lot.
I really cannot thank you all as much as I would like to. We're not in person, we're over Zoom, but thank you for coming out and making this October read such a success. Lee Goldberg, Lee Child, and Andrew Grandchild, and Lisa Unger. It's been an honor and a privilege and really fun. I cannot believe it's after 8 o'clock already. Everybody get a copy of Last Girl Ghosted, Gated Prey, and Better Off Dead. You will have an awfully fun reading weekend ahead of you. One
of the lucky people that came tonight is going to get a copy of Lisa Unger's book. She donated one for giveaway. So I will draw the name and be in touch with you, and we'll get it into your hands.
And I have to say, after this pandemic and being locked up in my house, even though it's over Zoom, it is so nice to see you all again. It really is. I feel like I've been in exile.
Yeah. I agree. And I hope our listeners will join us for November's Rogue Reads. It's going to be an incredible lineup. We don't announce it on the show because it's a secret till we do announce it, but you can look forward to it. But this is for sure been one of my favorites. And, I'm raising hold on, glass and a cup of coffee and a Diet Coke. Everybody go have a drink. And thank you, Lee and Andrew and Lisa. Thank you, Chris, for making Rogue Reads possible. Thanks to the Rogue Women Writers. And I will see you all soon.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.